J.J. Dewey here again. For those of you that may be watching for the first or second time, let me remind you we're covering what I've written called the 95 Theses. Now, Martin Luther wrote the first 95 Theses against the Catholic Church back in the 1500s. But this is a modern day 95 Thesis that represents the will of the people versus the established representative government that we have. In other words, our government is not properly representing the majority of the people, and these are 95 points where the majority of the people are not truly represented. Now, what's interesting about this is that I personally have a number of views that are contrary to the majority. But these views that I may have that are contrary to the majority, I cannot put in here, because these 95 Theses only represent majority opinion versus the way that we are governed. And so all of us have various views, maybe that's a little bit fringe, just about everybody I talk to does. But what's interesting is that if you want to make change in this world, you don't start with your most far-out ideas. You work instead with what the basic majority of the people believe. If you work with what the basic majority of the people will accept, then change becomes possible. So what happens if you have a great idea that you think, well, the majority of the people just will not accept this? Well, that's entirely possible. But here's the great part about the majority of the people. The majority of the people have basic common sense. And if you have an idea that is good and workable, but you think the majority of the people will not accept it, all you have to do is educate them. Once they're properly educated, the majority of the people will usually accept something that makes sense. So if in implementing majority will, don't think that the majority cannot accept anything that's good, that's maybe beyond their consciousness right now. Majority can accept most anything if we give them a chance, if we give them education. This is what every tyrant knows. Every tyrant knows that the majority has to be educated in their direction. And the way a tyrant does it is he makes sure the news is filtered so the people only hear what the tyrant wants them to hear. This is the only way a tyranny can govern the people, is by filtering out the information that gets to them. Once the majority of the people get the right information, they'll normally go take the common sense route and make a pretty wise decision. Now, we can see our problems that we have if anybody watches the Jay Leno show. When he interviews those guys, many of them college graduates, or going to college or going to our finest universities, yet they can't answer simple questions like who's the Vice President of the United States or who did we fight in the American Civil War. They don't even know it's a North and South, about 25% of them. So it's amazing how uneducated a lot of our people are, and it would be a very simple process to educate the people on a lot of these items, because a lot of the things the general public do not know are very simple to learn. A kid come to fix our garage door. He was an employee of, wasn't the owner, but he was a young guy. I'd say he's about in his early 20s. And we started talking politics. He asked me what party I was a member of. I said I wasn't a member of any particular party, but I leaned toward the Libertarian. And he said, what's that? And I thought, boy, this is just an example of what a lot of the younger people don't know. But how long would it take to educate the young people as to what a libertarian is versus a Republican and Democrat. Matter of fact, I bet a lot of them don't even basically know the difference between Republicans and Democrats. This kid didn't know what a libertarian is. He never heard the term before. And this is a problem we have with a lot of our young people, well, people of all ages really, is that they don't know the basics. And a lot of these people vote. And when they vote, they don't know what they're voting for. They'll vote for the handsomest guy, the guy that maybe is the coolest, the guy that has the nicest family. Well, suppose this person is good looking, he's got a beautiful family, but he votes for higher taxes and principles that go against human freedom. I mean, do we really want that guy just because he's got a beautiful family and he's good looking and he's got charisma and he films well on TV? I mean, yet that's about what half of our country vote on, is these type of items, or maybe how well he presents himself on Oprah or Meet the Press or whatever. But we need to educate the people on the actual issues that will actually affect them. And if we do this, then the majority will make very wise decisions. As it is, even with the problems that we have with our educational system, and even with the ignorance that abounds almost universally, it is amazing when you look at, for instance, when a referendum is given, that the majority usually vote in a common sense of direction. Now, everybody doesn't always agree with every referendum, but for instance, every referendum I've seen about taxes, the majority always vote for lower taxes. Okay, so the majority certainly have common sense in that one particular area that affects the pocketbook. Okay, that said, let's go on. We've covered 70 points in the 95 modern day political theses. Point 71, and these are all points where I believe, and in many cases I have proof, that the majority supports this, and Congress and our governing powers are often against. 71, the Constitution must be respected as the highest law of the land. What is interesting is when any of our representatives or judges are sworn in, they swear to adhere to and respect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Yet when they get in, they often have a very loose idea of defending the Constitution. They see the Constitution as a living document, which means that you can pretty much read it any way you want and interpret it any way you want. Now, we look at religions. There's hundreds of different religions. They interpret the Bible all kinds of different ways. Some religions try to interpret it very strictly, like, say, Seventh-day Adventists, very strict interpretation. Unitarians, very loose interpretation. But we look at the way different ways interpret the Bible, then we look at the Constitution. I think there are even more latitude with the way the Constitution is interpreted quite often, because judges often make rulings that don't seem, I can't find the basis for that ruling in the Constitution anywhere, and many people feel that a lot of the things the judges come up with are unconstitutional. Matter of fact, a lot of our referendums that are turned over to the people, we vote on a referendum, and then there's always a certain percentage of the people that don't like how the public voted, so they file through the courts, and then oftentimes some judge will overturn the will of the people. This should not be. As long as it is basically constitutional, a judge should not be able to overrule a referendum of the people. And the silly thing is that when a judge overturns the will of the people, he often does it, says, well, this is because of Constitution, and he has a very, when you look at what he says, he often has very nebulous, very loose view of reading the Constitution. He reads it so, well, he reads it in a way that I don't. I mean, oftentimes the way a judge will read the Constitution and then create a ruling, I can't find it in there, and I can't see how he can find it himself. So this is interesting, and this whole situation where we're not going by the written law creates a major problem, and the majority of the people feel it's important that when we have a law that's actually written down, that we abide by it. Yet more and more of our elected representatives do not feel that way. They feel that, well, you know, this is what I feel in my heart, so this is what we should do, rather than this is the way it's written in the Constitution, therefore this is what we should do. So is that the right approach? I mean, shouldn't we go by our heart? Well, if everybody went by their heart, we couldn't really have a civilized society. Everybody goes by their heart, then you have basically anarchy, and you can't have a law that you can depend on. For the highest civilization to exist, we must have good laws, and then the laws must be meaningful and they must be enforced. If the laws are bad, if we don't like them, if all of our hearts tell us, hey, we don't like this law, then let's go change the law. And instead of just overriding the law and interpreting the law according to just the way that we feel. Rather than interpreting the way that we feel, let's just change it if we don't like it. And that's number 72. I kind of covered that. Thesis number 72 is we must enforce the laws that we pass. When we pass a law, then enforce it. And many times we pass a law, and who breaks the law probably more than anybody else? It's the politicians. Politicians tend to break the laws like crazy. For instance, remember a while back how they almost every politician back in Congress was subject to abuse the overdraft system. They wrote a whole bunch of bad checks on their congressional accounts, and whenever they break the law in, say, fundraising and a lot of different areas, what they say is, well, we need to create better laws. Well, we already got laws on the books covering these type of things, but when these our governing authorities and people running for office get caught, what they say is, well, we just need more stringent laws. Well, if they're breaking the laws that they have on the books now, and then they write more stringent laws, and they break them, well, what's the difference? That doesn't make any difference at all. So what we need to do is enforce the laws that we have, not only on us down here in the sticks, but our politicians must be subject to the laws also.